Welcome to Monolith everyone, the new map in Paragon. Monolith replaces Legacy as the sole map in Paragon. This is a basic guide for Monolith with an introduction to some new and awesome mechanics. Let's begin by looking at the map. Monolith has 3 lanes. It has a mid lane, a safe lane, and an off lane, as well as the jungle with a river that flows through the middle. Let's go into these in more detail. So let's start with the safe lane. Now there is a lot of information to take in about this lane as it has also a gold buff on it. This lane should see your carry and support heroes duo laning. The safe lane is the longest lane from spawn to tier 1 tower and also contains this gold buff. You might be asking what the gold buff is and what it does. The gold buff increases a hero's CXP gain by 20% for 45 seconds currently. Now which hero should be taking this buff? You guessed it, that's going to be the carry. Last hitting is vital for any hero to gain CXP fast. CXP is used to gain cards in general, so giving a carry the gold buff for them to gain a further 20% extra card XP is vitally important. A last hit on the gold buff minion will mean that the hero to last hit it will secure the buff. This will float to the hero and does not need to be picked up. To quickly note that CXP no longer falls to the ground, and you can only gain CXP through a number of ways now. That is through last hitting mainly, on killing minions, heroes, structures, also something from the Amber Link, which we'll talk about later in the video. CXP is shared amongst the lane as well, and also you can gain CXP from a global drip. Now more on these various ways to gain CXP later in the video. So the safe lane is a place for your carry to safely farm CXP or card XP to become strong from early to mid game, and to carry, that's it, carry the game in the later stages with a win in mind of course. It is important that the support hero keeps the carry alive no matter what in this lane and assists with disengaging or peeling for the carry. If one of you has to die, you better make sure it's the support. So obviously there is a safe lane for each team where you can farm CXP for your carry safely to make sure they can level up quickly, level up their card XP, gain cards and get further ahead in the game and to reach their power spikes as soon as possible. Your safe lane is the enemy's off lane and vice versa of course. So their safe lane is your off lane. You will see one hero going up against the duo of the carry and the support on this off lane. This hero will be able to soak up a lot of XP being solo, as heroes duo laning split the XP equally. Now I'm saying XP because XP is different to CXP. CXP is for gaining cards or equipment cards, as you may see in other MOBAs, whereas XP is to gain levels to acquire new abilities or increase the level of that acquired ability. The hero in the off lane has a big task ahead of them. They will be able to gain XP faster than the enemy carry and support, as that XP is shared between the two. You are solo, you will gain it quicker. So a hero that scales well with ability damage gained for XP will be optimal in this lane. They have a few jobs I suppose to do, which might be useful to note here. If they can contest the gold buff or poke so that the enemy carry disengages, the offlaner can slow the CXP gain of the enemy carry. This is very important as the carry will be responsible for much of the damage output later in the game. Also the offlaner has to make decisions based on the minions and status of their lane. They may often be backed up against their tower, which is fine, but if the lane is pushed in their favour, they may need to hit up the jungle to continue their own farm. I will make more videos on specific roles on lanes in the future. For now, the off lane is quite a big responsibility. But don't get downhearted if it is continually pushed. This is where your jungler can come in for the assist or you can continue to farm safely below your friendly tower. Now remember, you will be further ahead in terms of XP and ability level, and with this in your favour, kills on the enemy carry can be taken very early. This will negate that early CXP gain and will be a great way to assist in keeping your carry ahead of the enemy's carry in the match to give you that power advantage later in the game. So that's 2 of 3 lanes down. Let's talk about mid lane, which again is a very important role. Most likely this lane will always remain a solo lane. The most effective hero to take up this lane will be a hero with good lane clear. A hero that scales well with XP and CXP levels will be great here, as they will be gaining the maximum of both worlds as they are solo on the lane. Such heroes as Howitzer, Gadget, Gideon and Bellica will perform well. The mid laner can gain a ton of XP and CXP, so you better make sure to get those last hits. Remember that river I mentioned earlier? This flows right through the middle of the map and the lane. You can use this pathway to navigate easily through the jungle. Using this river road, you can get to lanes quickly, helping to gank, follow the enemy mid laner, or secure other buffs. These other buffs are known as river buffs. I mentioned river buffs a few times over the course of the video, so let's go over these very quickly. They can be gained from these locations on the map on your screen. When a river buff minion is killed, the buff floats to your hero and will give you one of 4 different buffs. The red buff gives 25% bonus damage from abilities and lasts 40 seconds. The blue buff gives movement speed increase and lasts for 25 seconds. The black buff gives you dot damage versus enemies using basic attacks. And finally, the purple or pink river buff puts you into the shadow plane until you attack. Now, that is basically stealth in a quick way of explaining it. These buffs spawn at 3 minutes into the game and then respawn every 2 minutes after that. Obviously, these buffs are very, very useful. You can use them to traverse the jungle, move through it quickly, stealth yourself as well, gain extra damage if you want to go and gank a lane, or even if you're leading up to a team fight and there's a jungle buff free, grab it before you enter that fight because it will give you extra damage or at least extra speed and whatnot so that you can actually get into the fight quicker or leave it quicker as well. So very important to try and pick up those buffs, but do not forget your enemy can also grab that buff. Now we've dipped our toes into the river buffs. Yes, I did that indeed. Let's move into the jungle. The river flows through the jungle, right through the middle of it. It's another very important role. The jungler will be roaming, taking out minion camps to farm their own EXP and their own XP. But wait, they can assist their teammates as well. With Monolith, there is a new mechanic introduced, which is called the Amber Link. The Amber Link gathers CXP gained from jungle minion kills. As the jungler kills these minion camps throughout the jungle, the link fills up. There is no maximum amount of CXP currently that is stored in the link, so the number can grow infinitely. So why does this benefit teammates, I hear you ask? Well, it empties every 2 minutes from the start of the game, adding to the overall farm of your team in terms of CXP. So you can see how important it is that your jungler stays on task. This doesn't mean, however, that you stay farming in the jungle and do absolutely nothing else. Ganking lanes, assisting and rotating to lanes to relieve teammates are equally as important as farming the jungle for your own CXP and XP gain. Remember, this is a team game. If you can assist teammates with a gank or a lane save, you're doing it right. Another note to add to the Amber Link is that an enemy hero can steal CXP from your Amber Link by attacking it. Warding now will be more important than ever. Another quick note, and that's on wards, these are now line of sight only. In the previous map, they would alert you to an enemy within the area of the ward. Now it's only if they have the enemy in line of sight. The jungle contains a new buff, the green buff. This buff gives you a shield which lasts for 60 seconds. This shield reflects back a small amount of damage back to the opponent when you are hit. So they hit you, you've got the shield, tiny bit is reflected back to the source of the damage in the first place. When the time runs out on the buff, the shield explodes, dealing AoE damage. So we can see that this buff not only gives sustain in survival with a shield, but also gives out a nice amount of damage for the jungler or whomever may pick it up. I can see this being very important for junglers, especially in the early game, to take out these large minion camps. They deal a lot of damage to your hero in the early game. So having that shield, that splashback damage, as well as just having the sustain yourself is fantastic. Teaming up at the start of the game with one other hero to take this buff could be something we see in this new map. This buff could also be very useful for carries later in the game, as it will help to protect them and increase their already strong damage output. We are still in the jungle, there's a lot to go over, but we're getting there. The Prime Guardian still exists within Paragon. Killing this boss minion activates your Prime card, which gives yourself and teammates a huge increase in damage, health and or minion power. This mechanic is designed to push your team through the objectives, potentially for a win or to take the advantage in the game. I did mention this briefly in the video earlier, but remember, last hitting the buff minion will give the buff to that hero. This is the same with the Prime Guardian, so watch out for a steal from the opposite team. Remember, if your teammate gets the last hit, your whole team gets the Prime buff. This is the only buff which is really distributed to your whole team. Try and zone out or ward the area around the Prime Guardian before engaging. This can be useful for your own steal attempt. Even if you die and you steal the buff, your team benefits and your enemy will lose out greatly. Now we have another minion camp to think about, the Raptor minion camp. In the previous map, a Raptor was killed to give you the black buff. Instead, killing the Raptor now will give you 1000 CXP, which is equal to 1 card level. Oh yeah, did I mention now that card points are issued in increments of 1 rather than 3? That's right. This means you can spend those card points earlier on lesser cost cards and upgrades, making them a lot more appealing. Killing this Raptor camp increases your CXP gain exponentially, especially as the camp can hold up to 3 Raptors. These spawn from 4 minutes into the game and spawn at 4 minute intervals. That is currently. We have just 2 more new features to come with Monolith that I wanted to talk about very quickly. Fog walls being the first. You guessed it, fog walls are walls of fog. You will not be able to see enemies through this wall, and they also block line of sight. This means wards cannot detect enemies through the wall. As mentioned earlier, wards have changed to a line of sight mechanic rather than an area detection one. This will make going through the jungle a lot more impactful and surprising. More to the laner that's obviously getting ganked by the guy coming through the invisible wall. So, what's the next one? Pretty much the final thing we're going to talk about in this video, and you saw them as the opening shots of this video as well, the awesome jump pads. Jump pads are the last topic that we're going to talk about, and they spawn at the start of the game and launch your hero into the air to give them a boost into the map. But if you lose one tier 2 tower, you will lose access to this mechanic, so make sure that you keep those T2s up. So, there is also a couple in the jungle. Here's a couple of shots of those. That's the brand new map in Paragon, Monolith. I hope you enjoyed this basic guide video. We have covered the very basic mechanics and features of the map. There is so much more we can talk about, and we will in the future. We've just scraped the surface. For now, I've been Jebro on this basic guide to Monolith. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. Thank you, and I'll see you out there on the battlefield.